Hey, it's Tim, and today I'm going to make some English muffins using the recipe that's on page 159 of the book Bread Illustrated by America's Test Kitchen. Here's a copy of the book. And the recipe in the book makes 12 muffins, and I don't want to make that many. I'm going to make half that many. I'm going to make 6. And so I need, among other things, I need 4 ounces of whole milk at room temperature. So I'm going to measure this on my handy digital scale, and I'm going to measure it in grams because that's accurate, right? I don't have to get down on my hands and knees and look at a measuring cup and hope that the measuring cup is accurate and hope that my eyeballs work and all that other stuff. I can weigh it, and 114 grams of whole milk is always 4 ounces of milk. That's just how it is. And it wants this milk to be at room temperature, and it wants the butter to be melted. So I'm going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And this is going to go in the microwave to make it room temperature. But I also need 2 ounces of water, which 2 ounces of water is 59 grams. So I'm going to zero out my scale. And I'm going to measure 59 grams of water. Okay. This is warmed up. It's ready to go. The only thing I have to add to it next is 1.5 teaspoons of sugar. Which there's 1.5. This gets mixed together. From the standpoint of making a video, it surely is easier to have all the ingredients measured out ahead of time. And if you believe what people say about, so 230 grams of all-purpose flour, if you believe what people say about cooking and baking, then you should always mise en place, get your stuff in order. That's 231 grams of flour. I overshot it by 1 gram. I think I'll be okay. So 1.5 teaspoons of yeast, 1 teaspoon of salt. 1 teaspoon of salt weighs 6 grams. I know this because I've weighed it more times than, a normal person would do. Alright, so that's salt, that's flour, that's yeast in a stand mixer bowl. We'll whisk that together. So one of the things about this recipe is that America's Test Kitchen says make the dough and at some point stick it in the refrigerator for at least 12 hours. And the reason that they want to do that is to develop some flavor. So why is that? Because when you use commercially prepared yeast that comes out of a package, that stuff is grown in a laboratory and it's purified and isolated and made, pretty much antiseptically, right? So it's pure yeast. As a result, it's very consistent. It's pretty strong. A package of yeast that contains 7 grams of yeast has got about 70 billion yeast cultures, believe it or not. 70 billion cells. That's a lot. And they double in size. They multiply and divide, right? That's how the single-celled organisms do. And as they divide to multiply, they double. So if you start with 5 grams of yeast, and there's 50 billion, give or take, say it's half that, 25 billion yeast cells, it's going to be, in half an hour, it's going to be 100 billion. Because it goes from 25, and 15 minutes later it's 50, and then 15 minutes after that it's 100. So at the end of an hour, you're going to have 400 billion yeast cultures populating this bit of flour that's in here. That's a lot, and that's what makes dough rise. But what you don't get is what you'd have if you had sourdough. Because if you had sourdough, you'd have the natural yeast and you'd have bacteria. And the bacteria are what give it the flavor. And since you don't have that, pardon me, since you don't have that, because this is laboratory grown yeast, then you're missing out on some of the flavor, which is why people like sourdough bread, because it tastes good. So by sticking the dough in your refrigerator overnight, it's going to accomplish two things. One, it's going to help make the structure the way that we need it so that it turns out English muffins are all craggly and bumpy on the inside. And the other is that it develops some flavor. So that's the name of that tune. So into the mixer, low speed, dry ingredients, and now the wet ingredients go all at once on top of that. And this is probably a touch too warm, but it's going to be fine. So the actual work required here, I mean, you've seen it. I started with everything in packages, and not very long afterwards, we're getting ready to have us some dough in this bowl. So I give it about 30 seconds, scrape it down so that get the dry flour off the bottom of the bowl, mix it with the liquid, and get that back into the bowl. Two minutes, it'll be forming a shaggy dough. Okay. I'm calling that dough. Now we're going to turn the mixer up one speed, so it's going to be on 2 on this mixer, medium low on a different mixer, and it's going to take about 8 minutes. So I'm going to turn the camera off because you don't want to watch this for 8 minutes, I promise. Okay, 8 minutes has passed, more or less. And so I'm going to transfer this dough into a lightly greased large bowl or container, and I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap, and I'm going to let it rise for 30 minutes. Seems pretty straightforward. I'll be back in a half an hour and I'll show you how to fold this dough. Okay, it's been a half an hour. I've got water on my hands. You can see that this dough is already starting to rise nicely, but oh yeah, very nice. That's one. Turn it a quarter turn, come underneath, lift up, pull, stretch, flop it over on itself. Turn the bowl a quarter turn. This is the third fold, and as usual, the dough starts to give quite a bit of resistance at this point. I re-wet my hand and stretch it again, fold it over, and now this is going to sit for half an hour until it's doubled in size. It's 82 degrees inside my kitchen, so this isn't going to take probably more than half an hour, maybe a little bit, but probably not much. Half an hour has passed. Now, look at that dough. Look how much that's risen. That's doubled in size, for crying out loud. Alright, sprinkle cornmeal on a bit. Yes, we did that. Press down on dough to deflate. Troughs transfer a well-floured counter. Alright. Let me get some well flour. I need some well flour to well flour this counter. That's a joke, son. A joke, I say. I think they exaggerate how much flour you need when you do this. So the top becomes the bottom, right? And we'll just get it out. Get out. There it is. And now we'll So I need to cut this into 6 easy pieces. So let's find out what this weighs, and then I'll know what each of the ones has to weigh. So, like that. 430 grams. Divide that by 6. Sounds like 72 to me. 72 times 6. 420, 432. So I got 430, so 72 grams each. So you saw what I did. I took each ball of dough and I took it from its sort of rectangular shape and I made it into a circle I made it into a circle by taking it like this and pinching it in. See? Pinch it in, fold it together, pinch it together, put it on the counter, roll it around. If you form one ball of dough in your life, I think you've formed every ball of dough. It's just iterations, you know what I mean? Do it over and over and over again, and you'll get there. Which is another thing. Can you imagine? So you might look at this and go, you must have some kind of experience because it looks like you know what you're doing. Yeah, well, I've made, this is the 31st recipe in the book I've made in the last 6 months. I do have experience. But it's doing these recipes back to back to back to back. You bake bread 2 or 3 times a week for 6 months and you'll be pretty darn good at it too. And I'm not saying I'm all that good. I'm just saying that it's starting to feel to me like I kind of have an idea of what I'm doing. And I'm going to have to stop in a second because I got a loaf of bread in the oven and the timer went off and I need to check it. But, see? There you go. Now this is the interesting thing about this. I think it's interesting because I've never seen anybody tell me to do what I'm about to do. And this is the last step before you actually bake these. And the way that these get baked is a 2-step deal. There's step 1 is fry them in a frying pan. Step 2 is bake them in a relatively low oven for a few minutes so that the interior gets completely done. Because there's a danger, right? If you're cooking them on a stovetop in a pan, there's a danger that what's going to happen is when they're browned on the outside, they're still going to be raw in the middle. So they solve this problem, America's Test Kitchen does, by putting them in the oven after they're browned on both sides. So, and they say weight it down like that, wait half an hour, and then put it in the refrigerator for at least 12 hours up to 24 hours. So I'm going to stop the tape there, and the next time you see, I'll have taken these out of the oven after they've rested for 12 to 18 hours. So here it is about, I don't know, 24 hours later, give or take. I took these out of the refrigerator and I let them set. I had a pan on top of them while they were in the refrigerator. I took the pan off. I let them set at room temperature for about an hour and a half. And now they're all risen. And I'm going to sprinkle the tops with some cornmeal, as the recipe said to. And there's just no need to measure this. Let's just put some cornmeal on them. This is a cast iron pan. And into it are going to go those. The recipe says do 4 at a time. Well, I'm doing 3 at a time because half is half. So let's lift with a spatula. Place in the pan. No oil, just in the pan. Pan's been heating for a couple of minutes on medium, medium low. What's the recipe say? Let me check the recipe. Crying out loud. Blah, blah, blah. Medium heat, 2 minutes. Yeah, it's been that long. I don't know, these, I think these, yeah, we'll see. Look at that, it looks like an English muffin. No oil in the pan. It is, you know, it's a well-seasoned cast iron pan, but there's no oil. The recipe says use a non-stick. Well, that's non-stick to me. This recipe for these English muffins is a dough that uses a higher percentage of liquid than a normal bread dough would, and that contributes to them being English muffins. When you cut them open, they're going to be an open structure, holy, craggy English muffin, right? Because that's what you want in an English muffin. You don't want Wonder Bread. Once they're browned on the other side, they're going to go back in the oven. I'm going to use this pan because I don't want to use a full-size sheet pan because I just don't. Let's see if they're browned. Yeah, they're browned on the other side. So I flipped that one. Now I'm flipping that one. I swear to goodness, do these look like English muffins to you? Because they look like English muffins to me. I think that, I don't know. I think that's just awesome. I think that's just awesome. So these have to cook for 10 minutes at 350. So in they go. And now the oven is ready. No, not the oven. Yes, the oven is ready. The oven's ready. And now I'm gonna take this really hot pan. I'm gonna set it on that. Hopefully I don't ruin that. And I'll show you. So these puff up when you put them on the hot, because like oven spring, the heat from the pan is going to make them puff up some, and you don't want to flatten them out. Yeah, that's what I thought. You don't want to press them down. You know, don't do this. Let them do their thing. So we got 3 to 6 minutes. These shouldn't take as long as I turn the heat up a little bit. All right, I flipped them over. This is the second batch. This one's really tall. I guess it got the good genes. But good. I'm putting these in the oven. Oh, look. They're English muffins. I swear. Except for this weird bubble on this one, I think if these are in a package, you probably wouldn't think, oh, I bet somebody just made these in their kitchen in a cast iron skillet. I gotta put them on something to cool. I know. A cooling rack. How long do these have to cool before I can cut one open? Let's find out. Cool 15 minutes. Easy. We'll be able to find out if we made English muffins here in a second. Well, 15 minutes, not really a second. Okay, a few minutes more for the ones that are in the oven, and I'll see you back here in a few. We're going to check out this English muffin after 15 minutes. They're still warm, but they're not hot. So fork split. So these cooked in the pan for, you know, I don't know, 6 or 7 minutes, judged by how dark they were. And then they went into the oven at 350 for another 10 minutes. So they should be just fine. Oh my, look at that. It looks just like an English muffin. I mean, that's just like an English muffin. So the thing to do now is to toast this. and then put some butter on it. It smells like an English muffin. Isn't that awesome? I think that's awesome. I'm going to toast this, see what it looks like toasted. Because English muffins when they're toasted look great. I'll be back in a minute. English muffin toasted looks like an English muffin. They smell like English muffins. I mean, why am I surprised? Like, what did I think they were going to smell like? Chopped liver? No, they smell like English muffins. Far out. I'm going to try one. Oh man. Yeah. Nice and crunchy, but soft. Just a little chewy. If you like English muffins, you'll love these. So, I'm putting a little cinnamon sugar on top of this half, and I'm going to eat this English muffin. I think you should get some flour and some yeast, some milk, some butter, some salt. Take some time, and in a day, most of which is sitting around waiting for the bread to do its thing, you can end up with some fantastic English muffins. Thanks for watching.